Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Andrew. Good morning, James. Lovely to have you with us.
Morning.
Just going to be waiting 1 or 2 more moments for everyone else to join us, but great to have you with us today. James, where are you dialing in from?
I'm in the UK.
Wonderful, wonderful. Lovely to have you with us. I may sound like I'm from South Africa, but I'm actually in the UK as well. It's lovely to have you with us today.
Yeah, I live near the south coast, Winchester way.
Lovely. I'm sure the weather must be absolutely superb today down there.
It is indeed. Yeah, another fine one. So yeah, nice. Got the doors open and yeah, nipping in and out of the garden today. So
Wonderful, wonderful, lovely. Andrew, lovely to have you with us. Where are you dialing in from, Andrew? Still on mute there. Good morning, Mr. Myrams, Mr. Mark Myrams. Lovely to have you with us this morning. Ashley, thank you for your time. Alex. Right, folk, if you don't mind, I'm just going to give folk 1 more minute and then we're going to jump in. I need to be respectful of your time as well. Great to have you with us. Right. Well, good morning, everyone. A very, very warm welcome to today. It's lovely to have you with us in our webinar on Beyond the Bottleneck, tackling the UK planning crisis with AI solutions. Andrew, thank you very, very much for your time. James, Ashley and Mark, it's lovely to have you with us as well. Alex, thank you for your time as well. I will be introducing Mark shortly with us, to us, as well as Ashley. But just to give you a bit of an overview as to what we're going to be dealing with over the next little while, just some basic introductory remarks from myself in the next few moments. And then I will be handing over to Mark Myrams, excuse me, who will be looking at the whole planning sector and what's really happening in the planning sector at the moment. And then on from that into the AI in the planning and architectural sectors, how we can actually expect AI to be making a difference. And then we would really like to give quite a lot of time to questions and answers. So that'll be a time for you to sort of interact with our experts and to hopefully be able to leverage some value from our time today. And then just a basic wrap-up session. So once again, thank you very much for being with us this morning. In essence, AIUK can be described as the friendly face and the extended hand, that organization that links people to technology and technology to people. One of the things that we found with AIUK is that there are 6 main questions that senior leadership and mid-management are asking around the whole area of AI. The first question that sort of senior leadership are asking is, firstly, what is AI? The second question is, what solution, if any, should I bring into my business at this time? The third question is, who can I trust to help me in this area? The fourth question is, how much is it going to cost me? And the final question is, am I able to actually make it count for me in a way that really produces ROI? So these are some of the questions that the top leadership are asking. And then moving down to sort of mid-management, they once again are asking themselves the question, what is AI? And the reason why they're asking it is because their bosses have sort of said to them, you know, here is an AI that we bought, make it work. Or secondly, find an AI and make it work. So mid-management are sort of saying, once again, what is AI? But the extrapolation of those questions flow into the whole area of how do I help my operations adopt AI in a manner that is truly synergistic and will produce value? And how do I help my team adapt to AI? This is where we as AI UK step in, both from a a perspective in helping businesses understand AI, develop bespoke solutions, and help their staff to adapt to and adopt AI in a seamless and sustainable measure. So it's wonderful to be with you today, and we really are looking forward to having a discussion around a vital area, which is basically the bottleneck that seems to be occurring in our planning sector, and how that is specifically impacting on the construction and the architectural areas of our country. And our first guest this afternoon, the big part of this morning, is Mark Myrims. Mark Myrims is the Chief Operations Officer of Studio Charette. He's been involved in the planning sector for well over 30 years. He's worked across policy, compliance, and development. So he understands the terrain from absolutely every angle. And I know that his insights today will be sobering, but extremely vital. So Mark, thank you very, very much for your time today. I will be handing over to you shortly for you to just give us a bit of a rundown as to what's happening within the context of our planning environment. Our second guest speaker is Ashley Robinson. He's our Chief Operations Officer here at AIUK, and he leads the development of intelligent, scalable AI tools that solve the problems we're talking about today. So he'll basically walk us through how AI isn't just a theory, it actually is a tool already changing how construction and architectural firms operate. So Ashley, thank you for your time today. It's lovely to have you with us. But with that in mind, I'm going to step straight into giving Mark the opportunity to share with us a little bit about what is happening in the planning sector, how that is specifically unpacking within the context of the architectural and the construction industry. Mark, thank you.
Morning. Right. Just over 20 years, actually, Justin. I'm not
20
that
years.
old. I'm not that old yet. I'm not that old yet. So my name is, Justin said, Mark Myrims. I've worked in different local authorities for many years. Used to make decisions on applications. When I started, it was all sort of, paper and paper plans and lots of paper files and a basement full of archives. That was quite a while ago. Not over 30 years ago, but quite a while ago. But the main thing really is that the government has finally got wind of the fact and realised, basically, and I don't know how much everyone here knows about planning, but you've got the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, okay, and they've set up the Digital Planning Programme, and it's coordinating open digital planning, a cross-sector partnership with forward-thinking local planning authorities to try and work together to create a more efficient data-driven planning system. The hold-ups at the moment, as I see it, now working in the private sector and having worked in the public sector, they go from planning policy all the way through to development management. So I was mainly in development management, making the decisions. I was at the coalface, chipping away, trying to get things built and done. The problem with that is that you're looking at local planning policies, you're looking at local policy documents. They all have to be adopted, they all have to be processed, they all have to go through a local plan process. Whether it's a London authority or a district council, there's a lot of tiers and things that are set up to monitor and progress local plans, planning policy documents. Now, the question really is, how on earth do you think all of that data, all of those documents, they have to go through public consultations, they have to go through public meetings before they get formally adopted? How on earth do councils do it? At the moment, they're struggling. So we've got a new government in place who want to change some of the legislation and the way things work. We've got county councils that are merging with district councils. They've all got to do new planning policy documents. But you can't just write a document and say, right, we're adopting it. You have to go out to public consultation. And obviously, what do you do when you go to public consultation? You have to write to people. You have to write to local groups, parish councils, local councillors, different community groups. Who has to do that at the moment? People in the back office at the council. Who has to collate all the responses that come in from the parish councils, from the districts, from residents, from interested bodies and parties like Campaign for Rural England or various other community groups, conservation groups? Who ends up processing all that? Some poor soul in the council office. So what's the solution? Well, the solution is quite easy. It's AI. And slowly but surely, the government are committing and they're working out that it's like a light bulb moment. They've slowly worked out that there's a backlog in the planning process. And it's not just in planning policy, it's not just in collating all those responses. When you get a major planning application, what happens? You have to consult people. How do those consultation letters go out? Again, someone in the back office has to collate all the addresses, have to work it all out, they have to send out those letters. What happens when you get consultee responses coming back in, letters coming back in? Someone in the back office has to load it all up onto the website, all the stat responses, has to monitor it all, check that it's all on the website. Who does that at the moment? All these council officials. And it's not necessarily about them losing their jobs or losing their positions in local authorities. It's about streamlining the process. They have to go through so much paperwork. It's unbelievable. There's so many admin processes. Just to validate an application is a huge backlog at the moment. Some councils are taking 2 or 3 weeks to get a planning application validated for the most simple things. And that's literally a tick box exercise. It's a checklist. And it would save councils so much time if they had an AI tool to help them with things like that. So people criticise the planning process for being slow. The reason it's slow is because they're processing too much data and they're heavily reliant on either old systems, systems that don't work, or individuals who are overworked. You know, there's so much paperwork involved in large or small applications. The first thing that happens, it comes in, it has to be processed, it has to be validated. Someone has to look at a checklist, they have to physically look at it, go through what's on that checklist, and then try and work out whether the application is valid or not. If it's invalid, they have to write back, give reasons for it. Then there's another correspondence where the person sends in that information. Then they have to check it again. All of that, you know, causes numerous delays and hold-ups in the planning process, misunderstandings, missed deadlines, all sorts of things go wrong. And the government are trying their best through a digital planning program. So they're working or trying to work hand in hand with local planning authorities. The problem now is we've got a new government, or recently new, and they're merging some county councils and unitary authorities. So where they thought, you know, they were getting on top of things and doing digital planning and trying to get to grips with it and trying to harness the data and technology and make decisions faster and more transparent, they've had to take a step back because the government are now reorganising things. There is funding out there for various local authorities. They're trying to encourage various private companies to join them on a digital journey. You know, there's an online digital planning forum community. There's all sorts of things there. At the moment, or there used to be a network of 117 local planning authorities that basically were trying to develop an action plan to actually develop things digitally. And it's not about, you know, people not losing their jobs. It's more about trying to speed the process up. There's a huge backlog. And the only way that backlog is going to get dealt with, you know, is by digitalizing local plans, digitalizing the validation process,
Mark,
trying to look at things, you know.
Why is there such a backlog? What is caused this? I mean, has there been an increase in the amount of applications to council or a decrease in the amount of people involved in planning?
It's a decrease in the amount of people who want to get involved in planning, especially me after last night's committee, which was horrendous. It's the fact that planning is heavily politicised. So every time you get a new government involved, they come up with new ideas. They come up with new planning policies. All of that then goes back out to consultation. It slows everything down. Local authorities merging with each other is not going to help now because they've got to come up with new local plans. To get a new local plan, you don't just say, right, we're adopting this. You have to go all out to consultations again. The volume of applications, the numbers hasn't really increased. It's the number of professional staff who've left the profession. People like me who used to work for local authorities who got fed up with it and left. Inexperienced staff who join who don't really understand planning, and there's no one senior to actually train them and mentor them and encourage them to do certain things. There's planners who aren't really using their initiative, who are slowing things down. And all of those things, you know, there's lots of different tools through AI that, you know, that could be used. You know, you've got You've got Greater Manchester City Council, and they're sort of working with the Greater London Authority to try and build on a data hub. And that data hub apparently, and I don't know enough about it because I haven't explored it, but they're collaborating to try and explore whether a similar data platform can be created elsewhere to monitor, visualize and report development data in Greater Manchester. And what I mean by development data is a lot of local authorities have housing supply targets. They have to monitor things. How do you monitor what's being built and where? How do you do that? Well, there's useful AI tools, but at the moment, councils aren't working together. At the moment, they haven't got one effective tool that they can use that monitors what's being built and where, how it's being built. All the councils have got housing supply targets. People are saying, well, what are you building where? You've got community infrastructure levy stuff. You've got commencement of development stuff. There's not enough officers on the ground to go out and say, well, what's commenced, what hasn't. But when people write in and say they've commenced development, some of those letters get lost. Some of those emails get lost because there isn't an AI tool. There isn't something to collate all of this data coming in. So it's not necessarily about the volume of applications being submitted. It's about the questions the government are asking now is that X, Y, and Z councils haven't got a housing target. What is their housing target? And the government are asking them, how many houses have you built? Or how many offices have you built? What have you been building? And that council has to then scratch around and work out or get someone to collate all the data together. Someone somewhere, because they've not used an AI, has to go into the system, number crunch it, work out what's commenced development. They might have to interrogate building control. They might have to, go through systems there. They might have to use, when I worked at local councils, we used Accolade, Uniform, and another system. Bromley's transferring over to a new system. They've got rid of Accolade and they're going to use something else. Another council are transferring from Uniform to Accolade. There's a few systems out there, but none of them integrate at the moment with anything like an AI system. So,
and tell me, Mark, how much, and I use this word sparingly, how much trouble is the planning sector in? I mean, when I sort of say that, what is the end user? Someone in the construction industry, or perhaps someone in the architectural industry. If they submit something to council, how long? And I know this may be a very hard question to answer. How long are they looking at to get an answer?
Well, you get things where you pay an additional fee. Some councils have launched this service where you pay an extra fee to get a streamlined service, but they're even struggling with that. So, most traditional applications that aren't majors take 8 weeks before you get a decision. But before you get to those 8 weeks, you're looking at 3 weeks for them to validate it. And by the time they validate it, they might come back with a silly question because you're dealing with some junior inexperienced validation officer. They might come back with a daft question and ask you something about validation. Or it might get lost somewhere in the system. And then it gets allocated to a case officer who's already got a pile on his desk. So, some councils make decisions right on the 8 weeks. So it doesn't help matters. And then if you've got a major application, it's 13 weeks. A lot of those end up at planning committee. There's a planning committee cycle. We were discussing something at a committee last night that was well over 13 weeks. Some things that are discussed at committees that are majors, some of them can be, nearly a year old before they get to that stage.
Wow.
And that causes a delay. And then the problem is, a lot of property developers have consents, but they don't implement them. They just bank them. And that's where also the crisis comes about. But the issue with the backlogs is really the fact that a lot of councils need to really start utilising the tools that are available to them. You've got planning and building control that don't seem to talk to each other. If they used an automated system, they could link it. Licensing came up in the meeting that I was at last night. And again, although licensing and planning are 2 different sets of legislation, sometimes they cross over. And if they had an AI tool where, there was prompts and things where something in planning came in and it had something to do with licensing, it had some sort of wording prompt in there, instead of someone trying to spot that later on, or someone picking it up at a later date due to a complaint, if an AI tool had picked that up early, it could have just pinged a quick note across on the system to the licensing team. Same with building control. Same with a lot of other teams don't talk to one another. They don't communicate because they're too busy in their own little thing. But that planning is pretty busy. So it's kind of, there's a lot of data and a lot of data that gets missed, but there's a lot of tools. So, you know, AI potential could review consultation responses, automatically categorize them, pick out key themes, identify trends, promise, you know, it could basically significantly improve the ability to run things like local plan consultations, which attract tens of thousands of comments. And at the moment, they take an enormous amount of time to process. Okay. You've got, at the moment, you've got over 3.5 million planning applications that are submitted every year in the UK. And over 1/3 of those planning applications at the moment contain basic errors. 250,000 hours are spent by council officers running validation checks. So that's really where, you know, there's a serious backlog. So if you get an AI tool that is taught to read plans and documentations, check for errors, there's a huge potential to automate parts of the process to free up those officers to do something that's completely different. Get them trained in other things. Ask a validation officer, do they want to be a planner? And they'll say, no, they haven't got time because they've got a pile of applications to validate. But if you give them an AI tool that helps them, they're able to have a conversation with the planner and learn things and progress their career. At the moment, some people are stuck, you know, because they've got loads of work.
Indeed. So just having a sort of wrapping up your time, and thank you very, very much for your input here. What I'm basically hearing is that the planning sector is struggling because they're firstly undermanned. They're secondly overwhelmed by the amount of work, and they're bogged down by the manual processes, which is resulting in sort of 2 to 3 months minimum sort of turnaround time. And that's creating a major backlog. As a closing word, in the next, you know, just a minute or two, what do you feel the solution is? I know that you've spoken a lot about AI and the automation of AI, and you've got 2 thumbs up from me on that side. You really do. But if there would be a final word from your side, from a planning perspective, on how to improve the sector, what would that be? Well,
I would say that, you know, planning, okay, it still needs an exercise of judgment and the weighing up of the planning balance, okay? So I'm not saying, and I'm not dumbing down the planning process, and I'm not saying that machines are going to take over everything, but there are tools there that planners, validation officers, and planning policy officers could use that would effectively help them do a much better job and help them to speed up the process. At the moment, planning's got a bad name because it's terrible, it's so slow, I've been waiting weeks for a response. If planners were able to use the tools that were available to them, and they are available, it's just trying to learn how to use them and work out effectively the best systems.
Wonderful. Mark, thank you very, very much for your input. Really do appreciate it. We are going to open up the floor a little later on for any questions, but I really do appreciate your input on that side. What I'd like to do now is to move across to Ashley and look at it from an AI perspective, and more specifically from the architectural and the construction industry. Ashley, what is going on in that sector, and how can we respond based upon the challenges that we are seeing happening as a result of the planning struggles?
Yeah, Mark, thanks for your input. Very, very enlightening. You know, you spoke a lot about the system being undermanned and bogged down by process. Probably one resolves the other. If you fix the processes, then you relieve the manpower to do their work. And AI is very good at that because it can set the process, it can automate the workflow, it can look at the issues. It has no bias, or at least the bias can be tuned out of it. So that with those routine tasks, what it can do is free up the officers to do the work that they're actually trained to do, and get involved in the part that needs to have an opinion needs to have some consideration of the local environment. That runs on into the construction and the architectural industry. As I look at the planning sector, it's awash with different levels of plans, different levels of rules that the architects and the construction industry have to deal with. AI is very good at being able to provide the workers on the ground, the guys that need to get the answers quickly, is very good at sorting that data and providing them with the answers that they need. Now, in planning, you actually want to know what the rules say. So again, you're looking at more the deterministic type AI, or at least a hybrid AI, which can draft you the answer, but it uses the full paragraph of the legislation or the full clause of the legislation, so you can accurately determine what rules and requirements are in place. And I think these are the areas that AI helps the most in the architectural businesses and the construction industry. We, as humans, we have great ingenuity. If you look at the architectural sector, we can use AI to help in the design process, but the ability of humans to imagine, to create, is actually far greater than AI. AI can replicate, it cannot necessarily create. So for me, the focus of AI in the construction sector is to underpin the architects, the designers, the site managers, to be able to alleviate the document stress, the document overload, the process workflows, to automate all of that back office stuff that the guys really don't want to do. They would much rather be on site. They'd much rather be doing the designing, the imagining, the job that they imagined when they were at school. That's what they want to be doing. So AI's job is to take care of all the mundane, the back office work, and that's how I see AI helping this broad sector.
Fantastic. Having a look at obviously one of the things that Mark made mention of was the fact that there are quite a few errors that come in to the planning sector that sort of seems to slow the whole process down. So you made mention of the fact that AI could help on the back end, of the construction industry and the architectural industry. Would that be in generating submissions to council to make sure that they were error-free or a lot less error-free?
Yeah, certainly. The validation process needs to be fixed on the council side. But if you have the tools to ensure that, depending on which council you are submitting to, that your submission meets all of their criteria, so that your system would not allow you to submit your validation without the full checklist complied with, then yeah, it's an easy win.
Okay, fantastic. And then one of the points that you made there is you sort of said that AI doesn't really have the ability to create; it rather recreates. I think that must be quite a relief to some of the folk, probably in the in the architectural and the construction industry. But I've seen some phenomenal things that AI has actually produced. How do you see AI as a disruptive force in the architectural and the construction industry at the moment?
I don't see it as being overly disruptive yet, because it hasn't got the impetus. There's lots of discussion. Construction industry is very rules orientated, so it's an industry that is compliance focused. So that's where the AI can be disruptive in bringing in new processes that allow you to automate, and that can be even for the groundwork guys. A lot of their work can be fully automated with the Internet of Things combined with AI. You can make disruptive changes there But as I say, those areas that are highly legislated, it's more difficult to be disruptive.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, we're talking about both the architectural and the construction industry as being highly regulated industries, and rightly so. We're dealing with the safety of people here. With the advancement of things like ChatGPT, co-pilots, and the like, people are dabbling with the summarization of documentation and official documentation. Do you think that that's having an impact on safety, possibly, when people are dealing with official documents and summarizing them or changing them with something like ChatGPT or Copilot?
Yeah, I think it can be actually quite dangerous to rely on the answer from a standard ChatGPT or any of the other systems. They all have the risk of hallucination, and you'll always see on the ChatGPT, there's always this caveat that says, "Hey, but sometimes I can get it wrong." So it's dangerous to use generative AI and to rely on it. Generally, people ask the questions that they don't know the answer to. It's not so bad if you know the answers. You just want it to summarize, and you can sense check the reply that it gives you. But if you don't know in the first place whether the answer is right or wrong, you could lead yourself into to a very dangerous path.
Absolutely. So let's say an architectural or a construction firm approached AIUK. What would be sort of what would be the top solutions that you would offer to them if they sort of said, "I want to have AI. I'm not even too sure what to do or how to go about it." What do you think? I know that that's a tough question, but what would be the best solutions, do you think?
We talk a lot about AI, but I prefer to think of it as business solutions. What are the biggest issues in your organization? Generally, it's the back end stuff. We want our staff to come into work, to enjoy the working day, to end the day and think, "Wow, I've really finished. I've really achieved something." The planners that Mark was talking about, are bogged down with a plan. If their achievement is, or I managed to clear 3 square inches of my desk, but it got full again by the end of the day, there's no achievement. And most of that is because they're stuck in the back office work, the stuff that's mundane and routine. So if you can start to fix those problems in the organization, when you speak to an organization, generally they will figure out that they are restricted in the work that they can achieve because of the back office workload, and AI can quite often alleviate that back office drudgery and backlog, and relieve the workers to go back to the front end stuff that excited them, the reason they chose the job in the first place, to freeze them up. And it's also about building confidence in the solutions. And we've often said that just in your favorite saying, AI is a little bit like a tattoo. Once you've got the first one, you want plenty more. And AI solutions are similar, but you have to go for the big wins. And it's not always the exciting and the sexy stuff, but it's stuff that really gives you a decent ROI very quickly. And that then helps you build confidence and to move forward with more solutions.
Absolutely. I think that one of the things that, as you know, Ashley, we're committed to is that we are fully committed to the advancement of AI technology so that people can go back to old school values and do the things that they really are good at and enjoy. So really appreciate what you've said there. Similar to Mark, in the last 2-3 minutes, if you could sort of give a golden nugget for those in the construction or the architects industry. I know you've made note of the fact of the back end, but in light of everything that Mark has said as well from the planning sector as well, what would your final word be to architectural firms, to construction firms, within the light of the challenges that they're facing with the planning sector from an AI integration perspective?
Yeah, I think it's determining those areas that you are really bogged down with. AI is very good at doing that mundane stuff. So if it's a workflow that requires you to frequently refer to various legislations, and you take time to find where that legislation is, or you find trouble finding the most up-to-date version of that, local plans change, there's a lot of information. Using AI to do all of that work really frees up you to go back to do the work that's important. Where there are manpower shortages, it's often because the workload imposed is related to compliance, is related to internal systems that can be alleviated by having AI take over that workload. So that's the way that I would look at AI solutions.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much. So just to sort of have a bit of a recap, Mark, thank you very much. Ashley, thank you very, very much as well. But just sort of having a quick recap then. So Mark, if I've heard you correctly, then you sort of say that the planning sector is struggling at the moment simply because we find that they are undermanned, they're overwhelmed, and it is a very high process-driven dynamic, very, very manual in its process. And Ashley, on the other hand, has turned around and sort of said something fairly similar, that what is perhaps one of the greatest bottlenecks or pain points of the construction and the architectural industry is that manual overload of the repetitive and the mundane.
Yeah.
And I think that this is where AI definitely is an absolute expert, is to be able to take the mundane, to take the repetitive, to automate that process, and to leverage our data in such a way that it frees us up to really get back to that which we're passionate about. So Mark, Alex, thank you. A big part, Mark. Ashley, thank you very, very much for your time. Really do appreciate it. What I'd like to do now, James, I'd like to sort of open up the floor to some questions. I know that a number of folks sort of stepped off, but it would be great to sort of maybe hear a bit from you, your background perhaps, and maybe any questions that you have for either Mark or for Ashley at this time.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, it really, interesting perspectives there and backgrounds to thought process and intention. My experience is UK PLC house building managing director, and I'm taking a bit of a time out of the industry at the minute, so just reflecting on what I do next and where. But very interested in this shifting landscape around AI and what it means. I mean, the term landscape for me is kind of fundamental to understanding how AI is going to be applied and its use. Going back to Mark's starting point around planning policy, there has to be a position in time at which, first and foremost, a part of the landscape is designated as potentially going to change. And then obviously it will then need to go through that full consultation process. And in my mind, I sort of see it as the layers of the process. There's that overarching big picture perspective through local plan determination. What is going to change, where, and to what use. And obviously there's a huge amount of consultation in that. So that's this very broad district, county level assessment of the landscape changing over time, and what's going to be happening when and to what degree. So that sort of top high level layer, and then obviously from there we end up right down at the manhole being built in a road in one of the sites that has been designated and gone through that whole lengthy process that takes years and years and years, as we know. So it's understanding how AI is going to be applied at each of those levels, almost this sort of zooming down process as you go through that very top level, county level planning, right down to actually we're generating information, and that applies to that manhole in that road on that development site. So that's kind of how I see how do we put AI to use across those layers, and how do we get it working for the humans that need to exercise the judgment and apply their experience, because that's never going to be taken out by AI. That's fundamental to what we do in the industry. There's a huge amount of legislation that's been touched upon, but with all things with legislation, it isn't black and white. It isn't binary. It's not the law says this, therefore you cannot. Actually, the law says this, but how do you interpret the law? And therefore, what does that interpretation mean you can or can't do? And where is the stretch? So, judgment and experience is hugely important, and AI will never replace that in my view. So I think, I sort of see it as those layers and understanding, what happens at each of those layers and how does AI work to assemble the information so that the judgment and experience can be applied. And then I think it's that piece really about, artificial intelligence sounds fantastic, but really what we want intelligent information management.
Yep.
Because what people want is they want the right information when they need it, so that they can apply the discernment, they can apply the decision making. And I think, at its core for me, really, it's about developing AI in a way that it knows how to ask the most fundamental question, which is, what is this? There's a bit of information here. What is it, and where does it apply? And then once you crack that, you can then start saying, well, I want to know this about this. So could be at high level planning process. I want to know what are the sensitivities on a particular boundary on a development site, and AI has done the work to sift through all the consultation responses, the neighbor responses, go through all of the various relevant bits of information, and you can pull out that information because it's asked that question, what is this and where does it apply? And then back to the site manager who wants to build that manhole, AI has done the work to say that is that manhole in that particular location, and when I'm asked for the information for that manhole, I've done the work to pull together everything you need to give you that information. So I don't know if I'm doing a very good job of explaining how I sort of see the, for me, that's kind of the holy grail that you get to. You have this sort of layer by layer approach of information management, making it easier for the the decision makers and the judgment to be applied.
Indeed.
And then you have that very speedy, responsive ability to give that person who needs that information the information they want, at that particular point, rather than all of the processing and sifting and trying to find and information, which takes up a huge amount of our really important time. So that's kind of how I see it. I mean, for me, it's very early stage on the AI journey. I'm doing lots of different webinars trying to get up to speed as how and soak up as much of the thought process that people have got about how it's going to apply to the industry going forward. But I think fundamentally, the most important thing for me and what I've really sort of settled on in my mind is that AI is a great chance now for humanity really to get a lot of the doing that takes up so much time and prevents the engagement and the being from happening. And that's really what we need AI to do for us. We need it to be doing a lot more of the doing so that we can spend more of our time on the being and the relationship. I think the fear is that AI becomes something else to hide behind. It's another wall to get through. It says you haven't done this in the right way, therefore you can't bypass me to get to somebody to engage, have a discussion with, kick the tires on a matter of debate. And we've got to all work together really to stop AI becoming another barrier to human interaction.
Absolutely.
So sorry about that. That was a long-winded.
No, not at all. Some great comments.
It's a long-winded download of the thought process as I was listening to your speakers earlier.
No, that's great. We really do appreciate it. I really love the term that you used there. Artificial intelligence and intelligent information. I think that's what we're really looking for. We're wanting AI to be built in such a way that it really produces extremely high ROI for whomever we're interacting with. So that was a really, really great comment there. I also really enjoyed your comment around making sure that AI remains our servant. I think that's very, very important. At AIUK, we strongly believe in the democratization and the demystification of AI. Everyone needs to be all hands on deck at this time to make sure that AI remains to serve us. And not a hindrance. So some fantastic comments there. One of the things that I also noticed was your comment on the layers, and that sort of made me sort of think about. It seems to me that the national planning sector is extremely fragmented. That you're dealing with local councils, and each council has their understanding of their laws, and How is it going to be possible to move the national planning structure forward if we're so thoroughly fragmented?
I think, Mark makes the very strong point. The world, in terms of legislation, let's start with that. The legislative framework naturally, for the right reasons, because of the pressure on the planet and why we're doing what we're doing, and trying to protect the environment, the legislative framework is increasingly complex year after year after year. So, that's a necessary part of development. And lots of people see that as, you hear it all the time in our industry. Oh God, it's not like it was 20 years. We could, so forget all of that nonsense. The complexity is necessary because of the pressure we're putting on the planet, the environment, and what we need to do. So it's understanding that is there, it's embedded, and what that complexity is doing is sucking up more human resource on managing that complexity. The consultations, the responses, and also technology is working to people's advantage now in terms of consultations. Emails means that it's not just you fired off a letter in the post, you're waiting for the council to do something with it. You fired off an email and you're waiting for an instant response because it's your issue and it's very important to you, and you want, and if you don't get your response, you're going to be piling in on your local councillor and so on and so forth. So, there's a lot more pressure on human resources as a result of that. And then, so you've got the complexity, you've got the resource demand that goes with all of that. And then you've got the very real human instinct, which is to preserve and protect what's already there. So, every single local village, council, town, settlement perceives new development broadly in similar, not all, town centres obviously have a different view, but there is a human instinct to protect and preserve what you've currently got because you like it. It's familiar, you don't want it changing.
Sure.
And so you have that very strong sense of our problems are unique to here for this reason. So, it can be, drainage related, it can be traffic related, it can be infrastructure related, lack of doctors, so on and so forth. So you have all of that at a local level. So we talk about it being fragmented, but we are actually, small settlements potted around, big settlements, and we have everybody's perception on their local issues. And to them, that is the most important thing, So yes, you have a fragmentation. You've obviously got political persuasions, which comes into play, and all of that we're familiar with. Mark talked about being at a planning committee. There's a lack of skills and expertise and know-how with the decision makers, which obviously has been a long-standing problem in the development process. And all you can do is, again, accept that. There are people that are very passionate, that want to have a say and have an influence, but they don't necessarily have the right level of skills, training, experience to understand the nuances. They've just got their opinion and that's it. They're never going to be changed. So,
Indeed.
So I think all of that is all in play and won't change. It will carry on becoming increasingly complex. And that's why I think, AI for me is just this fantastic moment in time to actually say, look, we've actually got something here now that can handle the complexity, because we as humans are doing what we need to do, because there's a lot of pressure on resources in the planet, but we've actually got something now that can handle the level of complexity that's needed to, make sure that we are making the right decisions, if that makes sense.
Indeed. Well said.
Long-winded way.
Well said. Well said.
But,
thank you. No, that's great. Thank you. Appreciate that, James. Really do. Alex, I see you got your hand there.
Yeah, just a few comments on the LinkedIn Live. This is all going out to LinkedIn. So Michael, thank you for tuning in this morning. He said, AI has the concept of human in the loop. AI could synthesize the information and then present it to the human for judgment. And then Ken Jones, thanks for your comment. There's an urgent need to speed the planning process and high targets set by successive governments. How likely is it that the current Labour government and local councils will adopt AI to help speed up the process? Was a question there from Ken. And then Michael has further commented, agentic AI is having an army of workers that can orchestrate work and then distill it to the human for decision making and judgment. There are definitely tremendous opportunities. So thanks for all those that are tuned in on the LinkedIn Live. Keep the comments coming in. It'd be great to engage with you on there.
Lovely, thank you, Mark. I know I might be throwing you into hot water here, but would you like to maybe sort of give your perspective on maybe one or two of the questions that have come in from the LinkedIn?
Yeah. So having a bit tired this morning, having used up 5 hours of my life that I'll never get back at a planning committee last night. But in general, the government are trying to start using AI. So they are developing things and trying to start using AI to actually find solutions to what I call the problem, the backlog. So at the moment, as I said to you earlier, there's the digital planning program, and it's a government funded thing, and it's bringing together and collaborating. At the moment, I think there's 46 local planning authorities that have joined the Open Digital Planning, and they're receiving a grant from the government, and they are basically working together, and they're trying to develop a network. The number of councils doing this might have increased now since the government came in, but they're looking at assessing the digital maturity of their planning service, and then they use it as a baseline for future work. They're developing action plans to improve the maturity of the service over time. They're looking at how they access the relevant digital data, training opportunities identified. They're trying to improve, the spatial sort of way they deal with things, conservation areas, listed buildings, all of that stuff. They're trying to get that onto proper digital platforms. And they're all trying to work together at all these authorities and having regular sort of meetings. I mentioned that the City of London Corporation, they were leading on a project to create a standardised approach to digitalising local plans and all the associated data. That started in March 2025, and it was a 12-month initiative. I haven't kept an eye on it, so I've been too busy trying to sort other things out. But they're sort of helping to create crucial planning documents more accessible for communities and stakeholders to use. Is that they're encouraging a lot of other local authorities to be part of the project, try and come up with solutions that can be scaled nationwide to meet the planning needs of different regions. They're all trying to work and collaborate with building regulations as well, trying to provide some feedback on that and how it can integrate better with planning and use digital solutions there. And what I would say, is that there's a huge amount of planning applications and local plans that all have to be assessed, all have to be used, all have to be processed and boxes ticked. But what AI is basically trying to do, and what planners need to understand, because some planners maybe are a little bit reluctant, is that it's got enormous potential to actually speed up the development process for applicants and authorities. So it can transform the way you look at things and the way data-driven and administrative tasks are undertaken. It can ease workload, and it could actually allow planners to spend more time on planning. So they can then negotiate good planning outcomes, which still actually require human actors to actually exercise their common sense, creativity, and their critical judgment, although that didn't happen last night. But some things can't be automated, and they shouldn't be. But AI is there for us to be able to utilize it so that we can utilize it in the right way. You're always going to have bizarre things like the planning committee last night, where people are really passionate about certain things, and they persuade members to make certain decisions. That's politics. That's planning is political. You'll never get away from that. It will never be moved away from that. But what planning is at the moment is a huge backlog of loads of data, which really could be quite easily collated and put into AI, so that planners have got more time, validation officers have got more time. In the early stages, when it was first used for validation by Milton Keynes, there were a few issues with it. So it would invalidate applications for the most bizarre reasons. So it's all about making sure that when you generate the right technology, I'm not a tech expert, but when you generate the AI tools, It's about what you input into the computer to make sure that when it processes all the stuff that comes in, it processes it in the right way, so that when the applicants or the agents get an invalid letter back, it makes sense to them. Because the idea is that by using the AI tools, you reduce significantly the amount of invalids, the amount of back and forth, the amount of refusals, the amount of discussions. All the AI is there to do is to actually assist. And if the right input's put into that stuff, then it will work, and it will work well. It will save a lot of time for planners and other experts and policy planners to actually get on with the job that they really, really want to do.
Indeed, indeed, absolutely. So, Mark, it seems to me that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Even if it's
Somewhere.
even if it's very, very slowly, the various planning sectors are getting AI on board, which I think is going to help with that mountain of backlog. So that in and of itself is rather encouraging. And I do agree with you that AI is not to be left on its own. It's to be a partner with human beings, empowering them to become more human, if that makes sense, which is obviously something that we at AIUK are very, very strongly in support of. As we sort of begin to wind down our time together today, Mark, I really do want to thank you. Just a reminder once again for our guests. James, thank you very, very much, and to all others who have attended this morning. Mark is the Chief Operations Officer at Studio Charette. Studio Charette is one of the largest planning consultancies in the UK. They're the only one that's on the government planning portal, doing an outstanding job. I know that Mark would be very, very happy to hear with you if you have any planning requests or needs from him. But Mark, thank you very, very much, both to you and to Studio Charette, for your input today. I know that this will be the first of many. So thank you very, very much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Ashley, once again, thank you for your input this morning. Anything that you'd like to add as we sort of wind up this morning?
No, I think Mark summarized it very well. The AI is not infallible, but it can be trained to be better and better. It does deal with does have issues like bias and hallucination, but they can be caught in the training process and resolved, so that the model will get better and better. So the services provided will just improve over time. And it really is about freeing up the human to do what the human does best, not replacing the human, but just being another tool in their toolbox. I think that's the essential part.
Indeed, absolutely. Ashley, thank you very, very much for your input today.
No problem.
Yeah, as we sort of wind up today, one of the things that we do need to take note of is obviously the fact that AIUK, or rather, big pardon, AI, Pandora's box has been opened, never to be shut ever again. So either if we are, strong proponents of AI or heartily resist AI, the truth of the matter is that AI is here and is here to stay. And we need to make sure that we are proactively, especially as business leaders, interacting with AI. There are certain figures flowing around that that if you don't have AI integrated into your operations within the next several months, you can expect to be at least 30 to 40% behind your competitors who may have brought AI into their operations. So we're beginning to see that AI is not merely a bolt-on to business, it is absolutely essential to the well-being of our future business. So from an AIUK perspective, we would love to interact with you or your business to see how we can endeavor to bring the potential of AI into operation in your business, so that you and your staff can truly become more human and get back to the passion of what is driving you individually. James, thank you so much for your comments, and to all of those online as well. What you'll basically be getting from here on in is that there is obviously a recording of the of our webinar. We would love for you to get onto our LinkedIn webpage, as a LinkedIn page as well. Please do follow us. It would be great to have you on board there. Reach out to us. We have a free AI readiness assessment that we would love to take you through, where we basically orientate you as to how AI could be of assistance to you and to your business. Any questions, reach out. But from our side at AIUK, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us, and we look forward to having you again at our next webinar.